in our genetic makeup. What are there? 22. No, that's 46 chromosomes. We've got 22. What are they?
Strands.
No, yeah.
There's 22 chromosome pairs, and then there's the sex chromosome, the X and the Y.
It is 2, and there's 22 something else too. Yeah. Anyway, point is, there's the 12 systems that make up the body, each ruled by one sign of the zodiac. There's the 12 systems. There's the 12 meridians. The Chinese are aware of these. There's, again in the head, these are the hours of the day which each planetary body affects and which meridian is charged in those particular time of the day. And this is how the organism is truly working. And scientists, doctors in particular, know nothing of this. Nothing of this. And that's why they're capable of doing a lot of harm when they operate. Many people die on the operating table. For instance, if the moon's in Aries and you're in hospital getting a brain surgery, you probably won't come out of there alive. You'll bleed to death. Menstruation cycle, blood and water. She's always associated with those two. And so if you need a bowel operation and the moon's in Virgo, again, bleeding problems. Doctors are killing people because they don't know where the moon is and they put on their reports, carked it, whatever, right? You've got no idea, and it's astrological, all of it. Hippocrates said that if a doctor does not know the science of astrology, he is not worthy of being called an astrologer.
That's what the Hippocratic oath is about, isn't it?
Absolutely, but they didn't stick that in there, did they? Imagine a doctor saying, here's the Hippocratic oath I live by. Just ignore the astrology bit, because I'm a dunce. Even with the PhDs, they're proving themselves to be dunces. We respect them because they do a lot of good things. Let us not go. but they could do a lot better, couldn't they? We could all do a lot better if we know the science. Chrism. That's what you'll find how you'll find it in your Santos anatomy, your Gray's anatomy. It's Christ. Christos in the Greek system. Bread. I am the bread of life. Fish. You see the Christians carry that fish sign, don't they? Yeah? Salt. Salvation. Salubrious. Saliva. Salary. Salute. Salutation. Salon. You know, Jehovah's Witnesses go to a hall. Comes from halos, the Greek word for salt. That's Latin, that's Greek. And we say a salutation is hello, hail, hi. It's all salt. In Italy, when I'm down in Italy, I say ciao or salve. Salve, salve. Why am I saving people with salt? Salve, hi, hello. It's all salt. With all your offerings, you shall offer salt. Because it's talking about salt is earth. You are the salt of the earth. It's earth. And so it's dealing with preserving and you see, your saliva tastes salty, doesn't it? But it smells fishy. Your bodily secretions, they all smell, because of the smell it's called the fish. It's odour. But its taste is salt. Halos, oil, wax. You see, cheddar, Ceres, the goddess of cereals, that's the Latin word for wax. And that wax comes from the holy claustrum. We call it the claustrum, but it's known as the Santa Claus. Santa Claus. See? Claustrum, the closet, the cloister, with the goodies in it, the manna, our Father who art in heaven, give us our daily bread. The bread, the manna, the soma juice, whatever you want to call it, comes from that holy claustrum. The good oil. Remember the foolish virgins? They didn't have enough oil. 5 virgins that were foolish, waiting for the bridegroom. The bridegroom's in here. And if you don't have enough oil, you don't ascend. And you don't go back to the bridegroom. Ulysses doesn't go back to Penelope. The prodigal son doesn't go back to his kingdom. He gets lost. And so the 5 virgins who had extra oil in their reciprocals, is that right? Christ and Saviour, because it's in here, and as we will see. But Ceres is in heaved up heaven. And this is the claustrum in here, just here. And as it descends, it is differentiated in the third ventricle by the pineal gland and the pituitary body. The pituitary body is otherwise known as Mary, and the pineal gland is Joseph. Let's sort that one out nice and quickly. The mother of Jesus is Mary, and the father is Joseph. Do you know who they really are? Think about it. It's quite. Do you know your Greek mythologies? Zeus's father. Jesus is Jupiter, basically. Jesus. Okay. Zeus. Exactly. The Romans made a compromise. The Greeks called Jupiter Zeus, and the Romans called him Jupiter. So the hero of Pisces the last 2,000 years was Jupiter Zeus. Excuse me. Jesus. And Jesus' daddy was Joseph, and his mummy was Mary. Well, that's Saturn and Rhea. Seth is Seth, is Set, is Saturn, and Rhea is Maria, Mother Rhea. So, and that's father Seth, Saturn. So, Jesus and his Saturn and Rhea, so here we have the pineal gland and the pituitary body, gland, and the oil, the wax, the chrism, is differentiated. The pineal gland sends a positive fluid down the pineal pingala. The pituitary body sends a negative fluid down the ida. And here is the sushumna. And this oil is further differentiated as it goes through all the glands. George Carey said that if the oil wasn't differentiated, our health would be perfect. But it is differentiated. And so, as it descends to the area of the sacrum. Now, the sacrum is the sacred. The secretion, secret, comes from secretion. And the sacrum is the sacred. In Colossians chapter 1, 26, 27, the Apostle Paul says, the sacred secret that wasn't known to the ancients about the mystery of the Christ in you, because he's talking about the chrism, because the secretion is sacred, and it's a sacred secret. You don't tell that to just anybody. It's forbidden. You don't get away with it. They were not to share this just with anybody, because people would abuse the knowledge, and look what we have. Just anybody is actually abusing it. The coven of witches, called the Vatican and the Rothschilds and the Bilderbergers and all those den of thieves, are actually using this science, this very science, and manipulating it to our disadvantage. So, as this beautiful oil descends, it comes to the sacrum. In this book, 10 Natural Treatments You Haven't Heard of Until Now by Dr. William Young, talks about the sacrum. This is very interesting. The sacrum forms the bottom pump for cerebrospinal fluid respiration. The sphenoid and occipital bones at the floor of the brain form the top of the pump. When you breathe, these cranial bones teeter-totter against each other at their meeting point in the centre bottom of the skull. This action pumps brain fluid around the brain case and down the spinal canal. Again, when you breathe, the sacrum rocks minutely, front to back, pumping the fluid back up. Now, according to George Carey, the ancients knew that every month when the moon transits your sun sign, a psychophysical seed is birthed in your solar plexus. This is Bethlehem, Virgo. Remember, Aries, Taurus is the cerebellum, Aries is the cerebrum. Cerebellum, both have cerebrum. In theology, cerebrum is Sarah Abram. Abram is the ram, the high ram. Right? So you see how you mix disciplines? Just look at the words. Cerebrum, Sarah, Abram. Sarah is Isis, Bram is Brahma, the ram. Cerebellum, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo. Virgo is the house of bread. We're in Virgo now, and look around at the fields and you'll see that they're gathering the wheat to make bread. In Virgo, the 30th of August, because she's holding out her sheath of wheat saying, when you come through my little post, my little room, my house, Bethlehem, you can have wheat. But in biochemistry, Virgo is also Bethlehem, and here is born the psychophysical seed that if we take care of this seed, because especially when the moon is transiting our sun sign, it is delicate. Remember, baby Jesus is wrapped in linen. This is to indicate that he's very, very tender. And those little seeds, you see, the moon takes 2.5 days in every sign. And those 2.5 days are the ones that we really need to be careful in terms of our behaviour and actions. No anger, no hate, no overeating, no drinking. Be a nice time to go and have a holiday or something, or get massages and just take some time.
Is that when the moon's transiting your sun sign?
Yes. What's your sun sign?
Leo.
And the moon is in Leo, regardless of whether she's waxing or waning, full or empty, or new. Doesn't matter. When she's in Leo, a seed is being born in your solar plexus. The moment you overeat and have a gluttonous night because you're getting together with your mates in 40 years, that will translate as acidity in your body. Acid is the enemy of the Jesus. And acid is ruled by Saturn. In astrology, there are 7 tastes as there are 7 planets. Acid is Saturn. Alkali, the opposite, is the sun. It's an Arabic word which means father-son. Alkali. So just have to look at the word. And they are the enemies, Horus and Set, Jesus and Satan, acid and alkaline. So this is a science of biochemistry, of alchemy, of sublimating the energies that are given to us. See, these are Chark Ra's. Ra is the sun. And we're going to get those spinning, see? Spin them. And see, when we look after that seed, and we should always be moderate in our habits, that seed will ascend. It happens naturally, regardless. Even people who are desperately trying to kill it by getting drunk every night and things like that, it's still going to happen. Maybe, depending on many things, but maybe not so quick. It might be a long time, but it's going to happen. Our concern is how can we speed it up? I'd like to do that. And so, with moderate habits, eventually, as it pierces the chakras, it changes its vibration. It increases its vibration. Eventually, when it climbs from the sacrum, and when it passes the 33rd vertebrae, which is the age of the Christ gets crucified here, because the Christ must get crucified in Calvary, the Golgotha, the skull, where the fluid eventually arrives at the pons, the medulla oblongata and then the pons, and just there between those is the vagus nerve which crosses. And so, and this is the vagus nerve. There are 12 cranial nerves. Never 13 or 11. See, Jesus can never have 11 apostles. It will never be. Maybe in another universe or somewhere. But as it happens, this planet has been subjected to the literal rendition of those scriptures, and people have lost the true meaning of all of the beautiful holy writings. So the Vegas, there it is there. That's the tree of life that God planted in the Garden of Eden. And in fact, it is one of the rivers. It's the Euphrates River. You see, there's the Tigris, the Euphrates, the Pishon, and the Gihon. The Pishon is the urine. There's urine, saliva, cerebrospinal fluid, and blood. Hiddekel is the blood. Pishon is the urine. Gihon is the saliva. And this is the Euphrates, the river Euphrates. So what happens is Jesus gets crucified up here, and the oil crosses the vagus nerve. Vagus because it's vagrant. It just wanders around feeding all the vital organs and bringing back the goodies. And eventually when that oil comes back and crosses here, it proceeds to the optic thalamus. The optic thalamus is in the third ventricle, the third heaven, the cave of Brahma, the cave where Jesus died. Once the oil returns there, for 3 days it's inactive. 2.5 days it's inactive. And then ignition. It reaches the pineal gland, and this is where the third ventricle is, where the fornix is, passes these two, the anterior pillars of the fornix, and by the way, there's a constellation which was added, one of the 40 that were added to the original 48. And when you go to Aries and Taurus, on the computer you can check out the Google Sky, and you go and you'll see a constellation called Fornax, right where the fornix is in Aries. So whoever it was, he would have been a very discerning person. He would have known that man is the measure of that. So whatever's here, it's got to be up there. When eventually the oil goes through the anterior pillars, and there's the ram, by the way, you can see the ram, there's his horns. Aries, Abraham, our Father who art in heaven. And so there's the anterior pillars. Once it hits the pineal gland there, it increases its vibration 1,000-fold, and we have higher consciousness. All the dormant brain cells in the cerebrum are reactivated. The pineal gland produces a new fluid called the blood of the Christ, which saves us from our sins. The blood of Isis. Jesus turns water into wine. See, the fluids that were produced before then are like water, and now they will be like wine. This is why Jesus turns water into wine. The wine is in here. Once we finally arrive and we're saved. Salvation. And here are the anterior pillars. This is the third ventricle. There they are. And what happens is, it has been explained to me, but I'm not, I'm not a biochemist or anything like that. Maybe I won't be the best person to explain this, but there is an electrical charge that goes to the right. It goes to the right side. And in theology, that's the east, the Garden of Eden. The right hemisphere is always the right place to be. The left is sin, mister. You see, left-brain people who are convinced of their opinions and thinking, there's lots of great thinkers in that part of the world too. We idolise and make monuments to great thinkers, but they're thinkers. Here is knowing. You see? So we have to, as the Israelites did, we have to cross the Red Sea. That's the corpus callosum between the two hemispheres. It's red. And we should not remain in the land of perdition, the land of Canaan, the left brain. It's associated with the lower brain, the cerebellum, the man brain. This is the God brain. And we have to send to heaven head. We have to bring the fluid back up there to reactivate the dormant brain cells here. And so this is why right is right, you see. And it also has to do with Ra. Because, see, English is Hebrew Egyptian. It's an astrotheological language. That's why Ra is right, and brother L is left. L and R. Yeah, anyway, there is the tree of life. Here is the fornix. And there is, this is the Christ coming home, Hercules, bursting through those pillars. Those are the pillars of Hercules. That is salvation. That's the hero coming home. In the Bible, in 2 Kings, this is how subtle it is. But everything I read in the Bible, I see biochemistry, sacred geometry, numerology, tarot, Torah, light, syncretism, astrology, the lot. It's all in there. Even though it's a mutilated, redacted document, and the Romans really did a job on it, a number on it, and so did Eusebius in the 3rd century. Not Eusebius, Eusebius, Constantine's bishop, and then of course the Jesuits. They've done a lot to try and dilute the spiritual content of this alchemy in our scriptures. They've done a good job, because a lot of people are just purely ignorant of it. The door for the middle chamber, pineal gland, was in the right side of the house, right hemisphere of the brain. And they went up with winding stairs into the middle chamber, and out of the middle chamber into the third heaven. Here you see how, as above, so below, this is the pons, where you see Jesus dies on the Mount of Olives. The olives corresponds with Libra. You see the 12 zodiac signs are not only in your body along the ecliptic, they're also in your head. Aries, Taurus, and the eyes. Gemini, the twins, the nostrils. Cancer, Leo, Virgo, the air, and the cerebro, well, the spinal column goes through the foramen here. And it's Virgo. Mercury rules air, and cerebrospinal fluid. Libra, the 2 scales, that's where Libra is. The Mount of Olives, where the crucifixion happens. There's 2 pyramids. What's 2 pyramids doing in your head? That's the pons. Pons means bridge. That's the maximum, Pontifex Maximus. That's why the Pope wants to be called Pontifex Maximus, the chief bridge builder, because that's the bridge we have to cross. Where's that confounded bridge? Remember that one? Yeah. That's the bridge, the confounded bridge that everyone's looking for. You've got to cross that bridge. And that's why the Pope, the greatest pimp interloper of all time, he's put himself there. And that's why his expression, the church, is salus extra ecclesia non est. Outside of this church, there's no salvation. That's why they baptise everybody with birth certificates. We're all Catholics in their system. That's how they see it. That's a baptism, because they have interloped. Why? Because we've forgotten to be kings and priests, sovereigns and spiritual sovereigns. And they know it. And they know when we wake up and when we take responsibility for looking after our own priestship, our spirituality and sovereignty. You see, in astrology, Aries the lamb and Capricorn the goat. Capricorn's the boss of the solstitial tree. Aries is the boss of the equinoctial tree. These are 2 trees that are planted in the Garden of Eden. The tree of life. Why? Because this tree is cyclical. When the sun reaches here, the cycle returns. It's eternal, the tree of life. And this will be the tree of the knowledge of good and death, good and evil, because you've got 2 things happening here, good and evil. This is the kingly. According to Ptolemy, 2nd century astrologer, this is the kingly political axis, Capricorn. This is the spiritual axis. Why? Anyone got any idea? Aries is fire, Libra is air. That's masculine, that's spirit. Capricorn is earth, Cancer is water. Those are feminine. Femininity, material, mind and matter. Priest and king, that's the cross. That's the secret of the secret of creation is the wave. That's the symbol of it. You know, we have all our little, we carry them around, don't we? You know, cross, got that given to me. There's what I got in the Temple of the Sun in jade. That's a chicana. Remember the eight spoke wheel? It's all based on this. It's the sun. So they know when we have faltered, defaulted, and they know when we come back. So it's up to us. It really is. Spirituality is sovereignty. Spirituality is sovereignty. Unfortunately, some people learn about sovereignty, and they do it for all the wrong reasons. You see? For material gain. Again, it's not for that. We've got to get away from Babylon the Great. Lose the name, win the game, get rid of it, get out of it. Yes, we can do things to make some changes as much as we can. We have to get out of Babylon the Great if we do not want to share in her sins. Babylon is patriarchy, folks. Baba, you go down to Syria or any of those Middle Eastern countries and you say, how do you say daddy? And they say Baba. Well, the biggest daddy of them all, the biggest pimp on the planet, Papa, that's the Pope. In Italian, that's Pope. Papa. Daddy, Papa. Papacy. That's the babacy, Babylon the Great, is patriarchy, folks. It's monotheism. Watch out for the four mons. Money, monarchy, monopolism, and monotheism, which is theocracy. This is deism. This is deism. It's not theism. It's not their Humpty Dumpty fiction that's going to come and save them. This is reality, true, direct knowledge. Remember? Gnosis, epignosis, one of the levels of knowledge. These are all the ones that have held that the seat of the soul is in the cerebellum or the little brain. So you've got Plato, Strata, Hippocrates, Herophilus, Erastus, Stratos, Galen. We still respect his 2nd century Roman physician Galen. And his astrology is still the best. Galen is one of the greatest heroes of the Western mind, one of the top 10 of the greatest respected individuals in the West, Galen. And all of these guys, even Saint Augustine, they all said, I'm going to go through fast for this for the camera, but they all said the 2nd ventricle, 3rd ventricle, it's the 3rd ventricle. It's definitely the 3rd ventricle, the seat of the soul, together with the heart. And this is why we must pierce the heart. These are all ones that have ever said that Swedenborg. Okay? And there it is, there's the brain, the cerebrum, and the cerebellum. And that's what the Egyptians knew, folks. There it is, the optic thalamus, this is the cave of Brahma, this is where it all happens. Look at the dendritic nature of the tree of the cerebellum. And dendrites, of course, we know dendrites are here in the pia mater, don't we? Pia mater? Pia mater. That's the soft matter in the brain, yeah? And then the outside is the dura mater. That's the Holy Mother, folks. Pia mater. That's it, our Mother who art in heaven. Children, babies, they know to put their tongue up to the palatine because they know that they have to keep healthy. They know that from other realms. You don't teach that stuff. But then you've got the guru sitting there that no one pays attention. He says, if you want to raise the Christ, your tongue, when you're not talking, find the little spot, little magical spot that just creates a circuit. You can feel it. And then perhaps take your shoes off and walk on dirt every day to earth. And you watch what happens. Perhaps connect your fingers, even all of them when you're walking. Just close the circuits, right? But this is, and then in the scriptures it tells you, these are all the scriptures that talk about children. The tongue of the suckling child cleaveth to the roof of his mouth at first. The young children ask bread, that's the bread. And no man breaketh it unto them. This is all about the tongue. This is in scripture. Here is the cerebrum, God, Abraham, reaching out to the cerebellum, saying, you need to come up into the promised land. Again, but let man examine himself as to eat of that bread and drink of that cup. It's talking about the bread, the wax, the ceres. There it is. That's the heaven, head, ram. Okay. The petals, the 7 chakras, 4 petals here, the number of death. 6, the number of death. 10, the human number, 5 fingers. Everything here is below the sun, which is green, the sun chakra. It has 12 petals. Of course, Jesus, the sun, has 12 disciples. But below here, these are the colours of hell. This is the colour of earth. That's the colour of the sky. That's the colour of heaven. We should be in our heart chakras. And we are now, because we are now in the sign of Aquarius. Opposite Aquarius is Leo. We are in the axis of Leo and Aquarius. Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, Set. Leo is ruled by the sun, Horus. Horus and Set. Probably what the Sphinx is trying to tell us. That when Leo and Aquarius come around, it appears to me that the face of the Sphinx is not a woman. It appears to me as Set. Check out Set, the pharaoh, the father of Ramses the Great. Seti. There were many Sets and Setis in Egypt. And the lion is Horus. It's talking about this age that we're living in. When Horus and Set line up again on the equinoxes, which only happens every 12,000 years, then we would be in this beautiful age of the heart, because Leo is the heart chakra. This is Virgo, Bethlehem, the solar plexus. We were here for 2,000 years when the equinox was in Pisces, Virgo axis. We've been bumped up. We should be here as a race. We are actually. But the residual rubbish from the last world is still yet to crumble, and people don't know it yet, but we're here. We've arrived. But this green planet which we stand on, this green, we must look up to the blue skies and go through the throat chakra, where the Virgin is, Virgo, the Saviour, the Mother of God, and then we go through that foramen, the hole that goes to the bottom of the cranium, where the spinal cord goes through. That's called can anyone help me there? Is it foramen or with an O? I think it's foramen. Your body's full of hundreds of foramens. For means hole. Foro. Hole. Holes of Amun. Light. Amen. Foramens. And there's a foramen here. In the bottom of the... Huh?
Do you mean parallels?
No. Foramens. Holes in the body in which like nerves go through. For instance, the spinal cord goes through the hole at the bottom of the cranium. The foramen magnum, it's called. Foramen magnum, because it's the biggest foramen in the body. We have hundreds. Just check it out in your Santos anatomy. And then you've got Amon's horn in the middle. The horn that starts to sound when your pineal gland opens. How many people have had this experience? They hear the buzzing. Yeah. Thanks, brother. That's the horn of Ra. Moses blows ram's horn. Abraham kills the ram caught in the thicket.
Like when you do that tone in your ear sometimes, like sort of tone.
No, it's more in your head.
It's more, you'll know. Yeah.
If you've ever had a car accident or done DNT, you will.
Yeah. Yeah, DMT is the same thing. Sometimes like a warm,
it's a feeling,
loving, warm tongue, yeah. And DMT is an analogue of, really it's just an analogue of ayahuasca and what your pineal gland is producing anyway. All entheogens are an artificial way of raising this chrism, by the way, guys. I take entheogens. Not every day, but I do. But the chief is meditation. Because, your entheogens will block out the filters. Cannabis does. Wonderful for blocking out the filters. You don't think about the bills you haven't paid and all the rubbish. You focus. But when you learn how to meditate and go in the middle, you find the magnetic white light. Not artificially, naturally. there's other artificial ways. And of course those ways, entheogens and filters and whatever, potions, even sex, sacred sex. When you go to the ancient temples, there was always, a ritual way of practicing tantric sex. It was holy sex, by the way, folks. It wasn't lustful, and that's just another way, because you see, the sacrum, this is where the serpents begin their journey. You see, they have to climb up and burst those chakras, and sexual energy is a way to sublimate that and do that. Okay? And so when you add the petals here, you find that all of those 6 petals add to 144. When you multiply it with the 1,000-leafed lotus, the crown chakra, you get 144,000. Hence, in Revelation 14:1, it says, "And I saw the Lamb slain with his 144,000 standing upon Mount Zion." Heaven, head, Mount Sinai, Zion, Mount Sinai, Shambhala, Mount Meru, it's the head. And heaven. And see, this is why Jesus in Scripture, our literary hero, who is none other than you and I, says, when you see the sign of the Son of Man in the heavens, know that the kingdom of heaven is near. Well, the Son of Man is Aquarius, folks. It's Aquarius. There's only one man there. There's woman, there's lion, and there's the Son of Man is Aquarius. And so, when you see him in the heavens, because you see, the astronomers knew that on March the 21st at 6 a.m. you go out and you see what constellation is rising on the ecliptic in the east at 6 a.m. and that's the sign you're in. And so Pisces has been there for 2,000 years. We're at the first degrees of Pisces up until we reach the 30th degree of Aquarius, because it's going backwards. It's a backward wheel. So we're now at the 30th degree of Aquarius, and it's going to be 2,000 years till we get to the first degree of Aquarius, and we transit Aquarius. And on the other side is Leo, Horus. And so now, when you go out today, and you go out and face east at 6 a.m. on March the 21st, you will see the head of Aquarius popping up. When you see the sign of the Son of Man, not Leo, not Scorpio, not the bull, the kingdom of the heavens is near. And the kingdom of heavens is the kingdom of head. Because the river where we baptize ourselves is the Eridanus, the third ventricle, the Jordanus. Jesus is baptized in the Jordan. One of the deacons of Taurus, of Orion, the hero, the optic-thalamus, is Eridanus. And Eridanus goes through Aries, through Pisces, and finishes at the feet of Aquarius in a star called Alcanar. Right? So there is Orion at the start of the river, and the river starts at Rigel, the bright blue star at the foot of Orion. So he's standing there slaying the bull, and the river Eridanus goes through him, the third ventricle goes through the whole thing, and then it comes up through your feet into Aquarius. So it goes from Taurus to Aquarius, Eridanus, the river. It goes through 4 signs, a whole quadrant. The reason it goes from Orion to Aquarius is because I didn't finish the zodiac in the head. Here is Libra, here is Scorpio, here is Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius is the Fontanelle, Pisces is here. And so Aquarius is pouring in from here, and the motto of Aquarius is, I know. The kingdom of heaven has come. See, Pisces is the feet. It's water. Water connects to earth, right? So we've been baptizing in the Jesus age people in water. Now it's time to get baptized in aquarium, air, spiritual air. Air is spirit, the Holy Spirit. That's why John the Baptist says, I baptize in water, the one coming will baptize in spirit and fire. Because spirit is air and fire is mysticism. They are the 2 spiritual elements that we need to get baptized in. Hence, delusional churchgoers suffer with what Plato said is the false spirituality, because what they've done is they've given people a false hope that they are saved, and yet they are not saved because they've had a psychic baptism. There's the hylic, which is the body. There's 4 levels. Psychic, which is water. This is earth, obviously, the body. The Heilig people are earthy people. These are the people who, I don't know, they really believe that Manchester United is going to thump Arsenal, and they believe in their football clubs. And I love football, don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is these people that just don't have any appreciation for anything other than bread and circuses. Nothing wrong with bread and circuses, but when only this, and these people were condemned by the higher ones. This is psychic, this is spiritual. Air. Spirit, UL, and this one's mystical. Fire. The one coming will baptize in spirit and fire. And hence the 120 disciples gathered together at Pentecost had tongues of fire above their Aries cerebrum. That's the fire, cardinal fire of Aries, you see. It was visible. But these people have what's called the false baptism. It's psychic. Oh yeah, they've been saved from this. They're not alcoholics, bums on the street anymore, and they're sitting on church seats now. But it's false. It's delusional. Minimum is here. Minimum one must have this spiritual baptism. And we've got 10 minutes left. I think I'll leave it for... there you go. There's ascended masters. These people have ascended their oils, their chrism, their Christ. These beautiful feathers of eagles shall never touch the ground. They must always fly. If this chief lets these feathers fall to the ground, he commits a grave sin because he is worthy to carry those feathers. They killed these chiefs by the hundreds. These were visionaries. These people had you can see it clearly. You can see this is you and I, God experiencing, because I am him and he is me, and I'm you and you are I. And he did the fine work. All of these did the fine work. Why would people bother to make these gold-plated things and spend hours and hours and hours to do all of this if there was no use to it? The great Alan Watts, Capricorn Saturnian teacher. I love Saturnian teachers. Capricorn Aquarian teachers, wonderful. Because Saturn is the great teacher. Old man Kronos, and you can see it, you can hear it in his voice, everything he does, it's all Saturnian. Jesus Christ knew he was God, so wake up and find out eventually who you really are. In our culture, of course, they'll say you're crazy and you're blasphemous, and they'll either put you in jail or in a nut house. However, if you wake up in India and tell your friends and relations, my goodness, I've just discovered that I'm God, they'll laugh and say, oh, congratulations, at last you found out. And there it is. The crown of thorns is in astronomy talk, it's the corona. The sun, Christ, has a corona. Jesus has a crown of thorns. You just got to know how to switch disciplines. Anyway, that's it, guys. Any questions? Oh, it's so much great stuff. There it is. That's the path. That's the path we're on. You see, Ulysses, he wants to go back to Penelope. That's the prodigal son. Penelope's in heaven. And she's got all these suitors. They're not worthy. Just a bunch of bums who want a princess. But this guy's coming back. You see, the sirens are trying to tempt him. Oh, yeah. But he's got wax in his ears. And he's tied himself to his spinal cord. This is the spinal cord. You've got to have some spine to resist all of this beautiful illusion. There's some sexy science. Whoop. Hard to resist, isn't it? What else is there? Well, he said, no matter how painful it is, and these guys are experiencing the pain, says you just keep rowing. And then, of course, when he gets to the palace, when eventually we ascend and the Christ comes back to the third ventricle, he's not recognised by Penelope because of the change. See? But then eventually she recognises the hero. And we do return, folks. We return to Ithaca, to the land. For 10 years he wandered, because 10 is the symbolic number of the cycle of necessity that we're on. That wheel of necessity. It's just a symbolic number. Nonetheless, it's not going to be easy. Broad and spacious is the road that leads to destruction, and many are on it. Cramped and narrow is the road that leads to life, and few are finding it. It's literary. And this is why the flood that came in Noah's day, this is the flood of consciousness, folks. Promethean fire. You see, when Jesus says, and in those days, the time of the end will be like the days of Noah. Many will be eating and drinking, buying and selling, until the flood came and swept them all away. Let's talk about the people who are just, going along, football's interesting, stock market's great,